Hello, year 3 and 4. Today's lesson, we are going to be using a box up text, and for those of you who are in year 3, this would be quite familiar for us, although we haven't done it in months. So this is just a recap of how to use a boxing up plan to help us plan your story, our story. So as I set out in the home learning, what you have to do, the first thing you need to do is just to create a box that looks like this. And in this size, on the left hand side, what you're going to do is, just so that we understand it a little bit better, I was going to use another word, but I don't want to confuse anyone. You're going to say what the paragraph is about, okay? So what is the paragraph about? And I just put it into a question. But essentially, these boxes will represent a different paragraph. So this is paragraph 1, paragraph 2, paragraph 3, and because I don't have any more room, I didn't go to paragraph 4, 5, and 6. So this is just an example, it's a model for you to then go and then create your own version of it. And you can have more paragraphs, but this is the bare minimum, okay? So bear in mind that this 3 paragraphs is the bare minimum. So this is what each paragraph is going to be about, and then this is going to be the grammar that we're going to put in these boxes, and perhaps even an example of the grammar that you could be using in that particular paragraph, okay? And we'll explain that a little bit later. All right, so just set up your box like this. On the left-hand side, what is the paragraph about? And on the right-hand side, it says just grammar. I know in my example that I gave you for the home learning, it says grammatical features, but it's the same thing. It's just basically the grammar that we're going to include in that particular paragraph. All right, so just following up from our story, okay, of that you had the video of, and then the example that I gave you as well. So we're just going to use that one. I know each and every one of you has one, which is great, and you're going to use that to compare it by the end of our unit, which should be by Friday. So again, this is where we're going to start this fresh. So for now, forget about your last version, and then we're going to concentrate on this version and using the one that I gave you earlier last week as a guide, in essence. Okay, so in the first paragraph, in the one that I gave you, the first paragraph, what they do there is they basically introduce the first impression of the tomb. So your main character goes into a tomb and they are seeing different things within that tomb, and that's basically what that first paragraph was really all about. So in your first paragraph, if you decide to follow this particular pattern, what you would want to do is make sure that you are describing the tomb, the first impression that you get into a tomb. You can go back and look at the video again, or you can close your eyes and really imagine as if you were in that tomb, okay? So that's what that paragraph needs to be about. Now, the grammar that we're going to include in that, okay? And this is very crucial for you to understand this terminology of what I'm going to be saying. And if you have any questions, please make sure to email your teachers, because this is very, very important. I'm going to try to explain it as best as I can. But again, sometimes we still have doubts, which is fine. So the grammar. Now, if I am going to be describing my first impression, anything that has to do with describing and detailed description, what I want to do for certain is I want to use my expanded noun phrases. Okay, so I definitely want to include expanded noun phrases to really create a vivid image and a lot of detail to my description. And because I probably am going to be trying to maybe add loads of different detail in my sentences, and I want to pack them with as much information as possible, I am going to have to try to include complex sentences. Okay? So for now, I'm just going to leave that there. Now, expanded noun phrases. Remember, usually they have a, I'm just going to have an example here of an expanded noun phrase. I'm going to use this acronym, expanded noun phrase. Remember, they usually start with a determiner. So let's say the. Then we have usually adjectives. Okay? So let's say we're talking about a door. So the big is an adjective. Big. And if we have two adjectives going side by side, we need to demarcate them, separate them with a comma. So we have the big, may want to give it a color, green. And then my noun is a person, a place, or a thing. In this particular case is my door. So the big green door. Now if I really, so this is an expanded noun phrase there, which is great, but then I challenge you to add more detail, okay? So you're going to then use a prepositional phrase. So preposition tells me where things are. So where is this door? So the big green door, where is it? Next to the kitchen, in front of me. Maybe we can say in front of me. In front of me. So again, we're adding loads of detail. We could have simply said the door. That's not very descriptive. So we want to go beyond that. We want to go and add more detailed description. And that's what we call an expanded noun phrase. We're expanding it. We're adding more detail to the description. And for complex sentences, those are the ones that have a main clause, those that can stand on their own, and a subordinate clause. Okay, subordinate clause start with a subordinating conjunction, usually at the head, and that means that they cannot stand on their own. So for example, a subordinating conjunction would be because, after, before, until, despite, in spite of. So all of those would be subordinating conjunctions. Okay, so quickly we're going to move on to the next paragraph. In the next paragraph it says we're going to try to build the tension and continue to describe the tune. So if we're continuing to describe, we are going to continue to have to use expanded noun phrases. So expanded noun phrases again, because they help me to add detail to that description, and that's something that I really want to include there. And then now for tension, you can do this in two different ways, okay? And that depends, this is when you as a writer want to, now basically you want to have your own style, and this is when reading comes in handy. So if you have read lots of books, this will be really easy, because you can take a little bit of what you've read and then use those sentences that help to build tensions. But usually, simply said, usually sentences that are a little bit long and the verb comes at the end. So for example, if you start with a subordinating clause, okay, the main action happens after, then that builds the tension on the reader, because the action doesn't come right away. You build it up a little bit, and then the action comes, okay? So I would say to build the tension, you would have to perhaps use complex sentences, but the subordinating clauses would need to be at the start to slow that pace down. So again, complex sentences with subordinating clauses at the start. Now, this doesn't mean that only you're going to use expanded noun phrases in complex sentences, because then your writing will be quite boring. However, what you want to do is to make sure that these are used. And that depends on your style, that depends on how much you want to use them. But again, it is a balancing act, and that's why we need to, plan for it, then we're going to do it, and then we're going to see how what we have actually written, does that actually make sense, okay? Have we added too many? Have we we didn't add enough. And that's when you evaluate your own writing. And that's the process of a writer. And it's a slow process, but that is the process that you have to go through to become a very proficient writer. Okay, and now my last one in here, it says, to continue to describe what is happening to the main character in the tomb. Again, you continue to describe, so what do we need to use and what do we need to make sure that we're including in here? Well, we need to make sure that we're including expanded noun phrases. Again, you see how expanded noun phrases in this particular text type is quite important. Now, in order to link my paragraphs, okay, we use adverbials, okay? So adverbials help to link between paragraphs and also within a particular sentence. So in each jump, I would say to begin each paragraph, I would add adverbials as well. So I would just have adverbials. And more specifically, I would say fronted. That means that they go at the front. Okay? And fronted. Adverbials. Now, this is one technique to help to link, okay, to help create cohesion between my paragraphs. But again, some of you may decide to use another technique to create that cohesion, and that's quite fine, okay? This is just a model. You can take as much or as little as you need. But this is the idea of boxing up to help me just get a structure of what my my plan is going to look like, because the planning process is a very important one. Because from here, you're going to take all of these ideas and then you're going to now put them into sentences, okay? And you can go beyond this. This is very minimalistic. That means that I'm doing the bare minimum because I don't want to give you too much information. But you perhaps could have underneath here sentences or ideas of what you're actually going to describe. So maybe there are 5 senses, okay? And you can describe the 5 senses in this box, for example, here. You can write examples of an expanded noun phrase that you might want to use here, or that you have read in a book that may fit this right here. So again, you can go as minimalistic, or you can really add loads of detail. That depends on you and what works for you. And what works for me, it will be different from what works from any one of you. I hope this makes sense, and I hope this helps you to plan, because by Friday, hopefully we'll be writing our hot task or our final draft. But this is a very important step. If you have any questions, please make sure to email your teachers with those questions, because again, this is the planning stage is one of the most important stages in writing. All right, I hope that this has helped understand what the expectation is for today's learning, and I hope that all of you are keeping well and that you are enjoying the sunny weather, and obviously this week will be quite warm as well. But again, if you have any questions, please email your teachers, and until next time, take care. Bye.